Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking on a source stack that alleges a degree of secrecy and, well, coordination that's really on another level.
It is. We're looking at documents and testimonies centered on this concept of a deep, secret world government.
Right. One that's controlled not by the public officials you see on TV, but by just a handful of interconnected generational bloodlines.
And it's really vital to state right at the top that we're simply extracting and presenting the, frankly, extreme and controversial claims made within your source material. We're not endorsing any of this.
Absolutely not. We are outlining the elaborate framework that they describe.
Exactly. So the core thesis of this material is the existence of 13 primary Illuminati bloodlines.
13 specifically.
Yes, and these families allegedly operate entirely outside of public view. They maintain their secrecy, the sources say, precisely because of their purported evil dark nature.
And from this hidden position, they secretly pull the strings of global finance, politics, and even occult systems. And this isn't a recent thing. It allegedly spans centuries.
It does, and that brings us to our mission for this deep dive.
We're going to try and piece together the narrative based on information the authors have gathered from. Well, from supposed former members of these generational satanic bloodlines.
So we're going to connect the purported historical actions of names you'll definitely recognize, names like Astor and Rothschild, to this massive, coordinated drive toward a centralized global system.
A system the sources constantly refer to as the New World Order, or NWOBO.
We have to unpack the mechanism of control, the specific organizational hierarchy, and, the frankly terrifying long-term strategies they allegedly use to steer global events.
Exactly. So if you really want to understand the framework of this whole global control theory as it's laid out here, we need to focus on two things.
The hidden infrastructure and the specific families that are deployed within it.
Right. This is a dense, heavy subject, but it provides a detailed, if highly contested blueprint of a world supposedly run by occult influence and, well, generational assignment.
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this foundational concept first. The 13 families. The idea isn't simply that they're wealthy or just, old money.
No, not at all. The source material claims they are the literal foundation of a separate, secret infrastructure of power.
And what are the terms the sources use for this infrastructure? It has a name, right?
It does. The documents frequently refer to this ruling structure as Moriah, or even more ominously, the Brotherhood of Death.
Moriah. So this is the highest level of control, spanning everything from the occult to global politics.
And these 13 bloodlines form the apex. The sources claim this list, which includes families like the Astors, the Bundys, Collins, DuPonts, Kennedys, Onassis, and Rothschilds, is confirmed.
Confirmed by whom?
By multiple sources and supposed ex-Illuminati individuals who have allegedly broken their silence and come forward.
And it's not just that they participate in occult practices. The allegations that they control the highest levels of it.
Precisely. They control what the sources refer to as high-level Satanism at stage 4 and 5.
And just for context, what does that mean, stage 4 and 5?
Well, these stages represent the absolute deepest levels of ritual abuse and strategic occult practice. It's well beyond what the public could ever be aware of.
And there's a leadership structure.
A very clear one. The supreme ruling body is the Grand Druid Council, which is also known as the Council of 13.
Because it consists of leaders from these foundational families.
That's it. But it gets even more secret.
Yes.
Above that Council of 13, there's an even smaller, more clandestine body, a Council of 9, and then an inner group of 3 at the very, very top. Their identities are almost entirely concealed, even from most high-level members.
That immediately makes you realize that when the sources talk about global control, they aren't talking about something you can trace through public tax filings or political campaigns. This is a system of inherited secrecy.
Absolutely.
We've mentioned some of the prominent names, Astors, Bundys, Kennedys, Rothschild. But the sources also briefly reference others, don't they?
They do. They mention the Lai family, Krupp, Reynolds, and Van Dyne. It suggests this network is truly global and cross-cultural.
But to operate on the surface, this whole hierarchy needs some kind of cover, right? I mean, how does a massive secret system hide its activities, especially given the dark nature of their alleged practices?
The use of cover organizations is absolutely critical. It's key to the alleged long-term success of the NWO plan. The hierarchy aims to capture occult power worldwide, and they use seemingly legitimate organizations as fronts.
Like what?
Well, Freemasonry is described explicitly as a front organization used to practice witchcraft and recruit lower-level operatives who are, totally unaware of the true agenda at the top.
So the guy at your local Masonic lodge has no idea.
No clue. The sources also detail how, in the 19th century, the operational focus shifted partially to spiritualism to confuse investigators and researchers.
So the most startling claim, I think, is how they allegedly use mainstream religion.
It is. The claim is that they infiltrate and control the top echelons of various major Christian denominations: Catholic, Episcopalian, Unitarian, Universalist.
And even groups like the Watchtower Society, better known as the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes.
So the staggering claim here is that organized religion, which offers spiritual comfort and moral guidance to billions of people, is simply a tool.
According to this material, yes. The source suggests that the highest levels of leadership in these denominations are controlled by Satanists who direct the faith, and, more importantly, the vast financial resources and political influence of the faithful.
All towards the goals of the Illuminati.
It's presented as the ultimate deception, hiding dark occult objectives behind a veneer of piety and public morality.
Okay, let's transition from the general structure to a concrete case study, which the sources spend a great deal of time on: the Astor family. They suggest they were absolutely key to establishing the Anglo-American financial and intelligence network.
Right. The Astor family history, as it's presented in these sources, is just riddled with suspicion from the very first generation.
John Jacob Astor.
Exactly. His official biography says he left Germany at 16, traveled to England, and then came to America in 1784. But the source material treats this entire narrative as a calculated fabrication. They argue that his satanic authority was already in place. They pose the question: how could a relatively impoverished German-speaking immigrant converse face-to-face with the established aristocratic backhouse family in England?
And be so easily accepted into their elite social and business scene.
Unless his arrival was prearranged by a higher power. It's framed not as an opportunistic immigrant success story, but as a political and financial assignment.
And what was that alleged assignment?
His purported mission upon arriving in America was assisting the satanic elite headquartered in England to maintain covert control over the newly independent American nation.
And this wasn't just, for the good of the cause. The sources claim he was given spectacular financial leverage almost immediately.
This is where the specific mechanism of elite control is laid out so clearly. Astor's success, according to these documents, was not due to his own genius. It was through direct intervention by a secret legislative group of the Illuminati called the Committee of 300.
The Committee of 300. And what did they give him?
This committee allegedly granted John Jacob Astor two special, incredibly lucrative privileges. First, the immensely profitable fur trade, which yielded a 1,000% profit.
1,000%. They refer to it as a pot of gold.
They do. And second, and far more damaging to society, Astor was the first American family allowed into the opium trade.
That distinction is critical, isn't it? They're claiming that the opium trade wasn't just another business. It was a strategically controlled commodity for the elite.
Absolutely. The source insists that this privilege was not available to other American businesses because it was a decision handed down by the Committee of 300. This ensured Astor faced zero competition in a trade designed to destabilize communities and generate vast, untraceable wealth.
And this action is cited as the primary evidence that Astor was a deployed agent.
That's right.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because it connects the Astors to the broader Anglo-American conspiracy framework. The Astors were supposedly prominent in the group,
which the sources identify as Britain's equivalent to the Skull and Bones Society in the United States.
a kind of secret club for the powerful.
Exactly. They served as key financial backers of the Round Table groups established in 1910, specifically alongside a man named Abe Bailey.
And this whole network, the Round Table, was instrumental in creating what?
The Society of the Elect. This is described as the super-secret top circle of Illuminati members in Britain, with Cecil Rhodes and Alfred Milner as the central figures.
And the Astor's influence continues to this day, allegedly, through the Rhodes Trust.
Yes, which still helps finance the Rhodes Scholarship System. The sources claim this system isn't really an academic prize. It's a mechanism designed to identify, vet, and train future elite leaders who are sympathetic to the NWO agenda.
So we have finance, logistics, and now intellectual and political training. The political and media control is also laid out explicitly in the source material.
It is. They are alleged to have largely controlled the London Times since 1922.
Which would make them a major long-term influence on British and, by extension, global news and opinion.
No question. Furthermore, the ideological connections are detailed through family members. Lady Nancy Astor, who was the first woman member of Parliament, was closely associated with the communist Fabian socialist George Bernard Shaw.
And the sources say she spent far more time with him than her own husband.
They do. And her husband's involvement points to a direct link between high-level Freemasonry and specific governmental planning.
Mason Viscount Waldorf Astoria.
He was a leader of the Political and Economic Planning Group, or PP. This PP group created a confidential government program, which was described in detail in a 1935 book.
And the cover of that book.
The cover conspicuously displayed an ostentatious Masonic square and compass.
So the sources present these details not as coincidences, but as deliberate breadcrumbs.
Right. Breadcrumbs showing the intentional overlap between secret occult systems, specifically Masonry and major political maneuvering, aims squarely at creating a socialist-leaning, centralized New World Order. The synthesis here is clear. The Astors allegedly provided the capital, the political cover, and the media control necessary for the NWO system to take root in the Anglo-American sphere.
Okay, so if the Astors laid the financial and media groundwork for this Anglo-American NWO, we need to understand who controls the eyes and ears of American power once the money is in place.
And that brings us stateside to a family who allegedly gatekept information for multiple presidents. The Bundy family.
The Bundys are presented as the perfect case study of hidden, unelected power. I mean, most Americans wouldn't recognize that name as part of the financial elite.
Not at all. Yet the sources claim that during the critical Kennedy and Johnson administrations, the two Bundy brothers controlled most of the information flow fed directly to the presidents.
So they were essentially managing the reality that was being presented to the Oval Office.
In a nutshell, yes.
Let's detail their alleged roles and affiliations. We have George Bundy and William P. Bundy. Their resumes, according to these sources, read like a checklist of NWO visible arm organizations.
That's a good way to put it. George Bundy, for example, was a member of Skull and Bones, class of 1940. He was in the Council on Foreign Relations, the CFR, and a Bilderberger attendee.
All groups the sources identify as grooming organizations for the elite.
Right. He served as special assistant on national security affairs to both Presidents Kennedy and Johnson. But even more shockingly, the source material claims he sat on MJ-12.
Okay, we need to pause there and clarify what MJ-12 is for anyone who hasn't encountered this specific lore before.
MJ-12, or Majestic 12, is alleged in these sources to be the ultimate secret council of wise men. They are unelected, unconfirmed. They're the ones who truly rule the United States from behind the scenes, making the real strategic decisions.
So if George Bundy was indeed a member, it elevates his claimed status from a powerful advisor to one of the secret rulers of America.
It does, and his brother, William P. Bundy, was a crucial link between intelligence and the State Department, serving as a CIA analyst and later an assistant deputy director.
Their power, or at least the secrecy surrounding it, seems to have been directly challenged during the McCarthy era. This created a key point of alleged corruption and cover-up.
The sources spend significant time on a 1953 incident. Senator Joe McCarthy, who the material claims was gunning for the New World Order, not just blindly chasing commies, subpoenaed William P. Bundy.
And what was the reason for the subpoena?
The specific contention was Bundy's significant donation, at least $500 back then, to defend the accused Soviet spy, Alger Hiss.
McCarthy saw this as clear evidence of NWO infiltration.
Exactly. And crucially, the sources detail how Allen Dulles, who was the CIA director at the time and himself allegedly part of the Illuminati hierarchy, completely ignored the subpoenas and orchestrated William P. Bundy's escape.
How was this alleged escape managed?
Well, the source claims Dulles helped Bundy escape the country by securing him passage on the Queen Mary before he could be questioned.
And the State Department.
They were then forced to call off the arrest at the dock. This whole incident is cited as the clearest evidence that high-level elite figures, when they're exposed, operate completely outside the law with the full collusion of intelligence agencies and political appointees.
The sources also point to direct occult ties within the Bundy family, moving beyond just political and intelligence infiltration.
That brings us to Harry W. Bundy. He is explicitly named as a Mason, a Satanist, and critically, a chief adept, a 9th degree of the Societas Rosicruciana in Civitatibus Federatus, or SRICF.
Okay, so a mouthful. What is it?
It's described as an extremely exclusive, high-level Masonic offshoot that's tied directly back to German Illuminism.
And the sources stress the irony here, don't they?
This group claims to be exclusively Christian, yet Harry W. Bundy's alleged rank shows they are professional Satanists seeking occult power at the highest levels. This ties the Bundys not just to political control, but to the core, dark, esoteric practices of the NWO.
So the Bundys managed intelligence and reality perception. Let's pivot to the political dynasties, the Kennedys and the DuPonts, who allegedly represent different but equally powerful vectors.
Right, electoral access and industrial/financial control.
Let's start with the Kennedys, specifically Joseph Kennedy, the family patriarch. The sources place him squarely in the Illuminati structure.
They do. They identify him as a member of the Pilgrim Society, which they describe as a branch of the Illuminati operating at the 6th level of the hierarchy.
And beyond that, the material links him closely to the mafia and other kingpins in the Illuminati,
Suggesting deep coordination between organized crime and the NWO elite.
the sources use Joseph Kennedy's tenure as U.S. ambassador to Great Britain before WWII to lay out a very severe claim. Allegations of treason and direct complicity in maneuvering the U.S. into war against the public will.
This is a highly sensationalized claim regarding the Tyler Gatewood Kent affair.
Who was he?
Kent was an American career officer working in the embassy code room. He allegedly discovered 1,500 pages of secret documents.
And what did they prove?
That President Roosevelt was secretly involving the U.S. in WWII while publicly assuring the American people he was keeping the country out. Kent tried to expose this conspiracy.
So how does Kennedy get involved?
The sources claim that in order to allow the British to arrest and silence Kent, which they couldn't do to an American diplomat ambassador, Joseph Kennedy, had to personally revoke Kent's diplomatic immunity in May 1940.
And the alleged deception continued after the war started.
According to the source, yes. After allowing Kent to be imprisoned and silenced, Kennedy returned to the U.S. and publicly pretended to be wholeheartedly against the war.
So the material claims that by serving as an accomplice.
He was indirectly complicit in the events that led to the elements of the Pearl Harbor attack. The implication is that he was a double agent, appearing to fight the system while serving as an intimate accomplice to deceiving the American populace into war.
Now, let's look at the DuPont dynasty. Their power is framed around industrial and financial leverage, and is centered almost entirely in Delaware.
The sources trace the DuPont family's power back to Pierre Samuel DuPont, connecting him directly to the Illuminati, potentially through his mother, Anne.
Her ancient noble family bloodline might link to the House of David, they suggest.
Right. But the DuPonts achieved immense leverage through their near monopoly on explosives and gunpowder, and later, chemicals, a sector the source notes touches every facet of our lives.
From fertilizers to General Motors products, their industrial influence was so great that the source estimated them to be worth $5 billion by 1940.
And the U.S. military supply chain was allegedly entirely dependent on their products.
This industrial might translated directly into political dominance in Delaware, according to the record cited here.
The sources show the confluence of family and secret society power by listing the Delaware governors and U.S. senators. They are just dominated by DuPonts and high-ranking Freemasons.
It's presented as regional control, used to project national influence.
And the sources insist that the family has a long history of meticulous historical management, which leads to one of the most sensational claimed cover-ups in the entire source stack.
Tell us about the alleged hidden history of Alfred Victor DuPont.
In 1893, the press reported the death of Alfred Victor DuPont as resulting from apoplexy. However, the source claims this was an absolute fabrication maintained by the family for generations.
So what was the real cause, according to them?
They allege that Alfred Victor DuPont was shot directly in the heart by a distraught prostitute named Maggie Payne over child support.
And the cover-up was instant and absolute.
Coleman DuPont allegedly retrieved the body in a hearse, and the coroner listed the cause as effusive apoplexy, a lie that the sources claim Coleman made worth the coroner's while.
This anecdote is used to demonstrate the sheer, unchecked power of the family to manipulate public history and the legal system, even down to a basic death certificate.
What strikes me is that the sources claim this power operates at two distinct coordinated levels: the visible political figure like Kennedy and the hidden operational expert like Bundy, alongside the deep generational financier DuPont. It paints a picture of total saturation of American power structures.
Moving outward, if the Bundys and DuPonts represent the industrial and political infiltration of America, our next group, the Rothschilds and Onassis, takes us into the deep mechanisms of transnational global finance, logistics, and occult power.
And the Rothschilds are presented as the central banking masters of this entire alleged conspiracy.
The Rothschild narrative, as laid out in these sources, begins with deeply occult origins, right down to the family name.
That's correct. The sources start with Mayer Amschel Bauer, who changed his name to Rothschild, which means red shield.
And this name was based on the red hexagram symbol hanging outside his house in Frankfurt.
A symbol which is explicitly identified as the Seal of Solomon, a key symbol in Kabbalism and occult practice. The sources link it to Saturn worship and say it represents the Luciferian concept of balancing good and evil.
So this detail is used to point directly to Jewish Kabbalism and occultism as the foundation of their power.
Yes.
The scale of their financial power is described in terms that challenge the very definition of a nation-state.
Well, they're estimated by some to control half the wealth of the world, but the operational control is the key claim. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the crucial engine of U.S. monetary policy, was allegedly controlled by 5 banks.
All of which were directly tied to Nathan M. Rothschild and Sons of London.
Exactly. The sources argue that through this mechanism, control over the U.S. Federal Reserve is fundamentally control over the world's money supply and interest rates.
So they aren't just financiers. They're central to the operational direction of the secret society network.
That's the crux of their claimed enduring power. They allegedly directed the central occult power over European secret societies, shifting operational control to Carbonerism, or the Alta Vendita, which was led by Karl Rothschild.
And they were prominent in the Round Table Group.
Which they helped finance, and which created the Royal Institute of International Affairs, RIIA, in Britain, and its daughter organization in the U.S., the Council on Foreign Relations, or CFR.
These organizations, which host the world's elite, are presented as extensions of Rothschild direction.
Furthermore, the source makes the startling claim that Victor Rothschild was both an important operative in MI5, British intelligence, and a communist, demonstrating the alleged use of ideological doublespeak to control all sides of a conflict.
This is where the conspiracy narrative ties back to the biggest conflicts of the 20th century. The source claims the Rothschilds were instrumental in financing key players, but more disturbingly, in the actual creation of Hitler's war machine.
This point is critical for understanding the Hegelian dialectic strategy they allegedly use. The Rothschilds financed figures like Cecil Rhodes, Edward Harriman, and Andrew Carnegie and provided essential capital to the Rockefellers.
But the most critical maneuver, according to the sources, was the Dawes Plan.
Described as largely a J.P. Morgan production, which was financed through Wall Street loans, this plan set up the IG Farben chemical cartel. And the sources claim IG Farben was the corporate engine that created Hitler.
And the connection to the war's worst atrocities and mind control is explicit here.
Absolutely. IG Farben produced the lethal Zyklon B gas used in concentration camps and was heavily involved in the torture experimentations that allegedly led to the refinement of mind control methods, specifically monarch programming.
But wait, if the Rothschilds are so instrumental in setting up Hitler and IG Farben, how do the sources reconcile that with the appearance of supporting the Jewish community? Is that explained as intentional cover?
That's an excellent point that the sources directly address. The material frames this as the ultimate deception. The irony, as they point out, is that a Rothschild agent allegedly set up the cartel responsible for the horrible persecution of the Jewish people, while the family maintains a public illusion of supporting their race.
It's presented as evidence that these bloodlines are truly supranational and super-religious, loyal only to the NWO agenda.
And their power structure allegedly makes them literally above the law. The sources use the specific case study of Edmund Rothschild and Bank Cal to illustrate this.
In 1973, Edmund Rothschild acquired 22% of Bank Cal, the Bank of California.
And the source claims he immediately began lying to family and associates about his intentions, and over the next few years used secret European bank accounts to carry out insider trading and manipulate stock prices.
Driving the stock down so he could buy cheap shares from misled shareholders. The key insight here is the alleged response of the regulatory body.
The Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, allegedly turned a blind eye to the abrupt, suspicious shifts in trading, even though they were highly irregular.
This sequence of events is presented as unequivocal proof that men like the Rothschilds are literally above the law.
Because the Illuminati hierarchy controls the regulatory and legal systems meant to police them. They decide what crimes get prosecuted, and in this case, none did.
They even have their own dedicated ritual site right here in the U.S., near a location tied to the Disney family.
That would be the Napa Pyramid, or Opus 1. Baron Rothschild initiated construction in Napa Valley, very near property that would later be associated with the Disney family.
And the sources obtained details from the contractor that the construction cost was $35 million.
far higher than public reports, suggesting hidden features. The building's design is allegedly laden with occultic numbers 3, 6, and 666, and its aerial view forms a clear Masonic square and compass.
And the source claims that events are scheduled around satanic high days, which serve as covers for secret rituals performed inside the pyramid.
Next, let's look at Aristotle Onassis, a kingpin who allegedly tied the world of shipping and logistics directly to the drug trade and the Moriah hierarchy.
Onassis's rapid ascent is presented as impossible without elite assistance. He went from being totally broke at 21 to a millionaire at 23.
And this success is explicitly attributed to his integration with the Illuminati's drug, porn, political, and business management section. His enormous shipping empire was allegedly a crucial logistical front
for secretly importing massive quantities of opium from Turkey to Argentina, disguised as bales of tobacco.
Yes. And the evidence cited for his involvement at the highest global levels is his remarkable wartime survival during WWII.
This is a powerful supporting detail. During WWII, German U-boats and aircraft sank the vast majority of Greek merchant ships.
The source says 410 out of 450 ships were lost. Yet Aristotle Onassis's large fleet did not lose a single vessel, even those operating in active war zones or in areas invaded by Germany, like Scandinavia.
The source attributes this wartime immunity to full collaboration at the highest levels,
suggesting he was protected by a transnational conspiracy that transcended national warfare, including the Axis powers.
Finally, the sources reveal one of the most sensational claims in the entire stack regarding Onassis's personal feud with Howard Hughes.
This is the alleged kidnapping of Howard Hughes. The sources claim that in 1957, Onassis's men, including one Chester Davis, captured Hughes at the Beverly Hills Hotel, seriously injuring him in the process.
Hughes was allegedly taken to Onassis's private island, Scorpios,
where he was forcibly shot full of heroin, essentially neutralizing him and replacing him with two doubles, L. Wayne Rector and Brooks Randy. The goal was not just elimination, but control.
What happened to the Hughes empire under this alleged deception?
The sources claim the Hughes empire was subsequently run by the Mormon Mafia for Illuminatus Onassis, consolidating the wealth and influence.
And to maintain the long-term deception that Hughes was merely eccentric and reclusive.
Computer programs were allegedly used to duplicate Hughes' signature, and what is astonishing is that this detail, the computer program, even became public knowledge when the Los Angeles Times ran an article about the technology in 1971.
The source uses that as confirmation that the deep deception was hidden in plain sight.
Exactly.
This alleged power structure moves from global economics and logistics to ancient organizational structures and the psychological control of the masses. Let's start with the esoteric and foundational group that allegedly provided the organizational blueprint, the Prieur de Sion.
The Prieur de Sion, or Priory of Zion, is claimed to be an ancient order existing since 1099 AD, though it only really entered public discourse following the 1982 book Holy Blood, Holy Grail.
But the sources confirm its existence independently, stressing that the preservation of specific bloodlines is paramount.
Right. High-level Satanists allegedly believe they are descendants of the House of David, which established a Jewish princedom in southern France between 768 and 900 AD.
So this is the deep historical root connecting bloodline claims to occult practice and organizational creation.
Exactly. The Prieur de Sion allegedly established the Knights Templar and is intimately connected to the creation and guidance of the Rosicrucians and Freemasons.
It was committed to Hermetic magic, a form of black magic rooted in ancient Egyptian thought,
and allegedly helped spark the Renaissance by reviving humanism and the occult through the translation of ancient writings in Cosimo de' Medici's library. The modern leaders cited include intellectual figures like Jean Cocteau and more covert political figures like Pierre Plantard de Saint Clair and Gaylord Freeman.
And Gaylord Freeman's power was confirmed by independent informants, the source says.
It was.
And their ultimate stated goal, despite the deep historical and spiritual focus, seems surprisingly mundane. It seems purely economic.
The sources referenced their internal magazine, Circuit, where the Prieur de Sion cryptically stated that they stand above all religion and political matters, concluding, there exists only one question: economic organization.
Which is presented as the ultimate admission that the spiritual, historical, and occult activities are merely complex tools used to achieve complete financial and resource control.
And that focus on economic organization ties directly into global crime networks. Which brings us to the triads and the Lai family in Asia, showing how they mirror the Western elite's operation.
The triads are described as a Chinese secret society, a cross between the Masons and the Mafia, but many more times powerful than the Mafia.
The sources claim they totally infiltrated the government and police force in Hong Kong, exacting extortion money from almost everyone in the territory. And one of the principal families controlling this entire criminal and political apparatus is the Lai family.
And the roots of the modern Chinese Republic are even tied to this network.
Sun Yat-sen, who led the overthrow of the monarchy in China to create the republic, was allegedly a leader in several triad groups and, crucially, a high-ranking Freemason.
This connection shows the long-term integration of Western secret society methods into Eastern power structures.
The triads started in the opium trade, much like the Astors, but have now evolved into sophisticated global financial operators, using their own accountants and lawyers for massive financial operations and money laundering. A complex mirror image of the Western elite's financial activities.
Now we come to what might be the most disturbing claim regarding cultural control and the psychological manipulation of the masses: the Disney deception and the alleged mechanism of monarch programming.
I mean, Disney is globally recognized as the epitome of wholesomeness.
But the sources claim that this public image is a calculated front used to conceal far darker activities,
Including hardcore pornography, snuff films, white slavery, and most centrally, Illuminati mind control.
The theory posits that Disneyland and Disney World were established in the 1960s as major programming centers for the Illuminati.
And this shift was allegedly away from military bases because of too much publicity, meaning the elite integrated their psychological operations into civilian infrastructure disguised as family entertainment.
And Walt Disney himself is claimed to be deeply implicated in the machinations.
Yes. The source claims Walt Disney had his own private quarters right at the center of Disneyland and met privately with prominent occult figures such as H.G. Wells, whom the sources called the Masonic prophet of the NWO.
And even dictators like Mussolini.
Right. The sources even trace the Disney family's deep ties to the Napa Valley, claiming Walt ran a construction company there in the 1910s, geographically linking them to the Rothschilds' Opus One pyramid.
So the argument is that the cultural output, the movies themselves, aren't just entertainment. They are scripting tools used to facilitate trauma-based mind control. Let's go into detail on the Fantasia claim.
Fantasia is described as a detailed step-by-step programming script used to create internal alter systems in mind-controlled slaves. The source provides specific allegorical interpretations for the movie's segments.
For instance, the image of Mickey Mouse is used to represent the core-core split, a fundamental element in dissociative programming designed to divide the personality.
And the animated elements serve as internal models for the constructed psyche.
Exactly. The various stars, illusionary castles, and magical settings are presented as visual models for the internal alter parts that the programmer needs to build within the victim's mind.
The spiral colors frequently seen in the film represent the kingdom of the gods, a place of false transcendence. And critically, the waterfalls and flowing water imagery are used as a means to erase memory of the trauma,
reinforcing the core programming commands. Wash yourself clean and just remember the fantasy.
This entire process is framed as the ultimate chilling deception, using universally loved culture to conduct deep psychological warfare.
The web of connections also includes Hollywood figures linked to these operations, often as unknowing or unwilling participants in the elite's agenda.
The sources claim actor Warren Beatty, allegedly from the Illuminati Beatty family, starred in Disney's Dick Tracy, a movie that is specifically used for color programming in mind control.
And a sister, Shirley MacLaine.
She is described in the source material as a CIA sex slave used specifically to compromise political targets, such as the Australian MP Andrew Peacock, in order to facilitate the establishment of banks like Nugenhand for money laundering.
She is allegedly adored by CIA-programmed New Age slaves, showing how the New Age movement itself is tied into the control system.
Finally, if this conspiracy is this vast, how do they keep the public from finding out? The sources detail an elaborate system of disinformation that allegedly allows the entire structure to thrive.
They don't just rely on compartmentalization. They actively manage the narrative. Intelligence agencies, the CIA, FBI, MI5, MI6, are presented as direct extensions of the Illuminati's power.
And they're tasked with internal control. The FBI is allegedly involved in managing kidnapping and providing children for sacrifice to the high-level elite, while the CIA is accused of covering up crimes, especially those related to mind control and drug running.
And they manage the narrative through specific, highly effective disinformation agent types. Walk us through those types of agents, because this is the alleged mechanism of public manipulation.
First, you have the agent of influence. These are journalists, academics, and TV commentators who are either witting or unwitting in swaying public opinion toward the NWO agenda.
Okay, then the second type.
The provocation agent. This person is sent in to destabilize target groups, often inciting foolish, self-destructive actions that discredit the groups they're meant to lead.
And the most sophisticated one seems to be the one designed to feed us truth.
That is the spoon-feeder agent. Their job is to dribble out legitimate, verifiable information mixed with calculated disinformation. They initially gain your trust by exposing real, smaller conspiracies.
And once they achieve respectability and a loyal following.
The sources claim they gradually increase the percentage of lies and deflection, leading followers away from the ultimate truth about the 13 bloodlines. This system makes it nearly impossible for the truth-seeking public to discern calculated falsehood from legitimate revelation.
And the sources claim major, high-profile events are simply manufactured scandals used for specific societal manipulation, citing the O.J. Simpson case as a prime example.
The O.J. Simpson affair is described not as a tragedy or a legal circus, but as a concocted, elaborate effort specifically designed to cause intense racial tensions in the United States.
O.J. Simpson himself is claimed to be a CIA mind-controlled slave.
And the entire affair allegedly involved coordination between the Mishpucha, which is the term for the Jewish mafia, the CIA, and the mob. Every detail, from the key figures to the courtroom proceedings, is framed as manipulation.
Including the sensational claim that a juror was dismissed because her mind control programming went haywire.
The overarching point is that the system can engineer chaos, racial conflict, and public distraction at will to serve the larger NWO agenda.
This analysis of your source material has painted an incredibly detailed and, well, dark picture. To summarize the alleged scope of this conspiracy, we've covered finance centered in the Rothschild and Onassis empires,
Political and intelligence leverage utilized by the Bundys and Kennedys,
ancient occult direction via the Prieur de Sion, and psychological control wielded through companies like Disney. It's a comprehensive, vertically integrated system.
and what stands out when you synthesize these disparate claims is the immense power of generational networking and, critically, the commitment to long-term planning.
Right. The sources claim that the triads, the mafia, and the Illuminati don't just exist in parallel, they coordinate.
They allegedly hold yearly summits, sometimes coinciding with high occult events like a Feast of the Beast, for long-term strategic planning, making turf decisions, asset allocations, and creating alliances necessary for global control.
This long-term, coordinated view is what makes the alleged plan so formidable. They aren't just reacting to history. The sources claim they are actively making it using a classic dialectical strategy.
Yes, the NWO plan is described as brilliant because it utilizes the Hegelian dialectic. We need to be clear about what this means for you, the listener. It's a three-step process.
First, the elite intentionally create a problem, the thesis, like a major conflict or crisis.
Then they promote an opposite reaction, the antithesis: public fear, moral outrage, civil unrest. And out of the resulting chaos and battle between the two manufactured sides.
The synthesis, the New World Order, naturally emerges as the seemingly inevitable solution. The aim is to create conflict and then step in to provide the necessary centralizing authority.
And the drug war, which most people view as a standard government effort to combat crime and social decay, is framed entirely as a calculated long-term maneuver designed by the elite to serve this dialectical strategy.
So as a plan that the power couldn't lose, possibly developed during one of those strategic summits.
According to the sources, yes. Step 1. Create a drug culture. This serves as a first step into the New Age conspiracy by softening moral barriers and encouraging altered states of consciousness.
Step 2. The elite make billions running the drugs themselves and use their global power to crush their competitors, all while maintaining the appearance of combating the problem.
And the most critical step involves the erosion of civil liberties, justified by public fear.
Absolutely. The public's subsequent moral outcry over drug use is then utilized to demand and applaud drug laws that appear tough on crime, but actually serve to remove the last vestiges of legal civil rights, even constitutional rights.
The sources stress that the beguiled public often doesn't realize what the laws actually say, willingly giving up freedom for perceived security.
This is presented as the Hegelian dialectic in action. Problem leads to reaction, leading to solution.
The ultimate goal, then, is to ensure that when the NWO fully manifests, it appears completely organic.
And the source suggests that if their initial plans like the drug war fail, or if the government's own drug smuggling operations get exposed, They have a contingency plan.
Create a scandal involving several U.S. presidents to completely eliminate faith in the U.S. government and switch public allegiance to a world government. The ultimate objective is to bring in the NWO Antichrist reign by making every major world change, no matter how catastrophic, appear as if it has happened naturally, stemming from public demand or inevitable historical forces.
This deep dive into your source material has been a profound exploration of the alleged secrecy, coordination, and generational planning of these hidden structures. The material suggests that the historical record we rely upon is largely fabricated to conceal the actions of families like the Rothschilds, Astors, and DuPonts.
And that alleged persistence and deceptive capability leads to a final provocative thought for you to consider. The source material details how organizations like the Krupps were able to completely conceal a massive military buildup for decades after WWI, despite Allied inspections and journalistic scrutiny.
It demonstrates how easily the public can be beguiled by controlled information.
And the sources warn that the U.S. is uniquely susceptible to terrorism because we are not prepared for it, and that the elite plan to use such manufactured or orchestrated events to make people willingly surrender constitutional rights. So if their long-term plans span centuries, as alleged, we must ask, what daily actions or decisions that seem completely normal today, from the products we use, the news we consume, the popular entertainment we enjoy, or the political figures we trust, might be serving a secret long-term plan that won't be fully revealed or even fully understood for decades to come?
A deeply unsettling question to consider as you process the claims made in this complex and challenging stack of material. Thank you for diving deep with us. We encourage you to continue your own exploration of the material provided.